Rylie, welcome to the booth. Do you want to just briefly intro yourself and what has brought you here to the Bitcoin 2022 conference?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Wisconsin. My family actually owns a dairy farm, and so while it is I grew up not actually having access to a lot of this new technology, my background is in math, data engineering, and data science.
Right.
So naturally, being in the financial industry, I came across crypto, looking at it from a decentralized ledger perspective. We're looking at crypto as a way to essentially make the transactions associated with debt products a little bit smoother.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a lot of room for improvement in the debt space. Have you seen that the interest or sort of like the need has been increased through the pandemic as more people are, living at home, having, their financial access is changing?
Yeah, absolutely. More specifically, in the mortgage industry, the digitization wave has only happened in the last 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic. Before then, and even up until this point, you have banks who are emailing FedEx numbers back and forth in order to figure out where your mortgage is. And so what we see now with the interest in crypto, we find that you look at Figure, for example. They've now transferred an e-note on the actual blockchain so that more and more banks can not only produce an audit trail, but then also have final settlement when it comes to the sale of debt products.
Incredible. And so what initially attracted you to the crypto space or the DeFi space? Like, why this venue for your math background?
Yeah, so I think that they do actually intersect. So when we're looking at how a mortgage transaction happens, there are actually multiple parties involved in the financing, the sale, and then also the authentication of the mortgage sale. And so when we talk about coordinating a transaction between multiple different parties, we find that the same technology that underlies Bitcoin or frankly some of these stable coins, we can use to coordinate the transaction between multiple parties in a way that's traceable and also immutable once it is that you've established a record.
Right. And so do you see this technology expanding to other areas of the market? Like supply chain obviously has been coming up a lot with blockchain. Like, where do you anticipate this this application of blockchain and traceability moving into?
Yeah, I would say the government has a monopoly when it comes to authentication of records. So in the case that we have an immutable record that we all know can be verified, and there's no longer room for a regulatory body to sit in between all these participants. And so in some ways, then we're kind of creating a grassroots movement to regulate ourselves. And the second way is that right now we find that more and more people are having assets that they can't necessarily collateralize with these typical consumer products. You can't get a car loan with your Bitcoin. You can't get a mortgage with your Bitcoin. So we'd like people with the assets that they do have to be able to access financing in a way where they don't have to then find liquidity within a certain asset like ourselves.
Right. And so this could even apply to like credit scoring models, like alternative data and using, like the crypto pools that people have as far as like, authenticating their ability to take out a loan and things like that. It's a really interesting space. But so have you found the reception from the more traditional mortgage players? Like, are they interested in what you guys are up to? What is the reaction been like?
Yeah, I think because the digitization of the mortgage industry has been so recent, and frankly in the UK it happened in the last year, the idea of working with Bitcoin or these other assets or their underlying technologies is very new, is very scary for a lot of people because there's a very large educational gap. These are 60-year-old guys that are doing what they know how to do, and so what I would love to do then is to essentially inspire and educate and give access to those who do have a handle on this technology to then learn more about mortgage markets, because that's how we provide it.
Right, and so how do you go about the educational process, like relating to people that have been doing something for so long a certain way? Like, how do you speak to that group?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have access to a mature secondary mortgage market through the multi-billion-dollar corporation I run crypto for. And it's through speaking with these banks such as Oregon, Citi, and speaking with them about not only their demand for certain financial products, but then the second, speaking about the assets that we are collateralizing. So we can ensure that they feel good about it and we do too, and we can find liquidity for our borrowers.
Right. And so the larger banks are definitely on board with it. But what about, some of like the mid or smaller sized banks? Have you seen a difference in reaction, or, is it just too soon to tell?
Yeah, I would say that the cost of adoption of new technology in mortgages is really high because you have to have an in-house engineering team in order to integrate with any of these services. So it's going to be really important for those who are in crypto looking to essentially come into the mortgage industry to make it very accessible, to make it very easy to start to use, because without that, you're going to find that these smaller banks who don't necessarily have a very large engineering team are cut out of the picture. And that's what we're finding right now, even with this digitization wave we have happening in the mortgage industry. And then as a final note, I'd say that right now the power really lies with those who understand the technology more so than the actual debt market. So it's really important that you start to cross-contaminate some of that expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I mean, a ton of tier one capital was just like put into a lot of the smaller banks, but regardless, you need staff, you need training, you need, you just have to have the infrastructure to handle any new technology. But this is really exciting and this is really interesting. I'm so curious to see sort of like how this emerges. 2-3 years in, who knows what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 or even like next year. It's moving so fast, but it was really awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. And then